She never planned to stay the night until he closed the door and didn't let her leave. She never planned to stay the night. That was the one rule Maya Lawson clung to as she stood in the hallway outside his apartment, rain dripping from the hem of her coat onto the polished floor. Just a moment to breathe, just long enough to stop shaking. Then she would leave. She always left. The city outside was chaos, sirens muffled by the storm, traffic snarled, the last train canceled because of flooding she hadn't bothered to check before leaving work too late again. Her phone sat dead in her pocket, useless, and her patience had run out hours ago. Ethan Cole opened the door without surprise, like he'd been expecting her. "Maya," he said quietly, stepping back to give her space. "Come in." She hesitated, the familiar instinct to apologize already rising in her throat. "I won't stay long," she said quickly. Everything shut down and I needed a place to wait it out." "You don't owe me an explanation," he replied. That should have unsettled her. Instead, it felt like relief. She stepped inside. The apartment was warm, softly lit, not staged, not cold. It smelled faintly of coffee and clean laundry, the kind of place that felt lived in rather than performed for guests. Ethan closed the door behind her. The click echoed louder than it should have. Maya shrugged off her coat, suddenly aware of how tired she was. The kind of tired that settled deep in her bones and made simple decisions feel impossible. "Tea?" he asked. "Or water?" "Tea's fine," she said, "but really I'll head out once the rain eases." He nodded, already moving toward the kitchen. Of course, he didn't argue. Didn't offer the couch or insist she stay. That was the thing about Ethan, he never pushed, which was exactly why she'd come here instead of anywhere else. They'd known each other for almost a year, co-workers once, friends maybe. Something undefined that existed in quiet conversations and shared glances during meetings neither of them wanted to be in. Never flirtation, never expectation, just understanding. She sat at the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap, listening to the sound of water boiling. Her body was still braced for tension that didn't come. When Ethan returned, he set the mug down gently in front of her. "Careful," he said, "it's hot." "Thanks." Their fingers brushed briefly. The contact was accidental. Still, her breath caught. He pulled his hand back immediately. "Sorry," he said. "It's fine," she replied too quickly. They sat in silence for a moment, the storm drumming against the windows like it was trying to be heard. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded automatically, then shook her head. "No," she admitted, "but I will be." He didn't tell her she would. He didn't try to fix it. He simply sat down across from her, close enough that she could feel his presence without it pressing in. "You don't have to be okay here," he said quietly. Something in her chest cracked. She wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep in. "I just needed somewhere I didn't have to pretend," she said. Ethan leaned back slightly, giving her space even as he stayed present. "You're safe here," he said, "for as long as you need." She swallowed. "I don't stay places," she said softly. "Not overnight, not like that." "I know," he replied. "You've always been clear." She looked up at him, surprised. "You noticed?" "Yes," he said simply. The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than if he'd tried to reassure her. They talked slowly, carefully, about nothing and everything: work frustrations, missed opportunities, the strange exhaustion of always being the one who leaves first. At some point, Maya checked the time and frowned. "It's later than I thought." "The storm's supposed to get worse," Ethan said, glancing at the window. "But I can walk you if you want." She imagined stepping back out into the rain, soaked and shivering, dragging herself home to an empty apartment that didn't feel like shelter anymore. "I'll wait a bit longer," she said, "just until it slows." He nodded, again no pressure. Minutes blurred into an hour, her shoulders relaxed without her noticing. She leaned back against the couch, eyes drifting shut for just a second. "Hey," Ethan said gently. She startled, sitting upright. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's okay," he said quickly. "I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable." "I'm fine," she said. "I won't fall asleep." He smiled faintly. "I wasn't worried." The storm outside showed no sign of easing. Maya stared at the door, keys heavy in her pocket. I should go, she said again, though her body didn't move. Ethan stood as well, giving her the courtesy of not blocking her path. Whatever you decide, he said, I'll respect it. She nodded. She believed him. That was the problem, because for the first time in a long time, staying didn't feel like a trap, it felt like rest. Still, she reminded herself as she slipped her coat back on, she never planned to stay the night. And as she reached for the door handle, heart pounding with a fear she couldn't name, she told herself this was just a pause, just for a moment, nothing more. She didn't yet know how wrong she was. ACT 2, the night that stretched too long, ~1 201 400 words, slow burn, emotional safety, denial begins to crack. Maya didn't open the door. She stood there for a long moment, fingers resting on the handle, listening to the rain pound harder against the windows. The storm hadn't softened, it had settled in, relentless and unapologetic. Behind her, Ethan waited, not blocking her path, not watching too closely, just there. She let her hand fall from the handle. I'll wait a little longer, she said quietly, as if the decision needed to be gentle to be real. Ethan nodded. Okay, no relief in his voice, no triumph, just acceptance. They moved back into the living room together, the space feeling different now, not charged, but aware. Maya slipped her coat off again and draped it over the chair, a small act that felt heavier than it should have. Ethan dimmed the lights slightly and returned to the kitchen. Hungry? He asked. I can make something simple. She hesitated. You don't have to. I know, he said. I want to. That word want made her chest tighten. Okay, she said. They cooked together in quiet coordination, bumping elbows, sharing small smiles when one of them reached for the same utensil. Nothing dramatic happened. No sparks flew. And yet, the air felt full. She sat at the counter while he plated the food. This feels domestic, she said lightly, trying to ease the tension she felt creeping in. Ethan glanced at her. Is that bad? No, she said quickly, just unexpected. They ate slowly, conversation drifting into softer places. Maya found herself talking about her childhood, the way she'd learned early that staying too long anywhere came with a cost. Ethan listened without interrupting, without turning her words into a lesson. That's why you leave first, he said eventually. She blinked. You noticed that too? Yes, he replied. You always decide before anyone else can. She laughed softly. Control. Protection, he corrected gently. The word lingered. After dinner, the storm worsened. Wind rattled the windows. Thunder rolled low and distant. Maya curled her legs beneath her on the couch, mug of tea warming her hands again. This is the part where I should insist on leaving, she said, just to prove I can. Ethan sat across from her, not too close. You don't have to prove anything to me, he said. That was it. That was the moment her guard slipped a fraction. She leaned back against the cushions, exhaustion finally winning. I don't know how to stay, she admitted softly. He met her gaze. You don't have to decide tonight. Her eyes burned unexpectedly. They sat there, the clock ticking quietly on the wall, rain filling the pauses so they didn't feel empty. At some point, Maya's head tipped to the side. She fought sleep, blinking hard. Ethan noticed immediately. Hey, he said gently, you can rest. I'll fall asleep, she murmured. So? He asked. The question wasn't careless, it was careful. She hesitated. I said I wouldn't stay the night. You still don't have to, he said. The couch is yours for as long as you need. I'll be in my room. She studied his face, searching for something that would make this easier. Pressure, expectation, anything familiar. She found none. Okay, she said quietly. He stood, retrieved a blanket and draped it over her shoulders with deliberate distance, careful not to linger. If you need anything, he said, I'm right down the hall. He turned to go. Ethan, she called. He paused, looking back. Thank you, she said, for not making this something. His expression softened. It's already something, I'm just not naming it for you. Her throat tightened. She lay back, the couch surprisingly comfortable, the storm outside loud enough to drown out her thoughts. Sleep came faster than she expected. She woke sometime later, not fully, just enough to register warmth and movement. The blanket had been adjusted. A pillow placed carefully beneath her head, footsteps retreating. She drifted back under. When she woke again, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains. For a brief, panicked second she thought she was alone, then she noticed the door to the bedroom down the hall was open just a crack. Ethan was awake. She sat up slowly, heart pounding, not with fear but awareness. She hadn't left. Not yet. She checked the time. Early, too early to call it morning. She stood, padding quietly down the hall, stopping at the doorway. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, pulling on a sweatshirt, hair still damp from a shower. He looked up, surprised but not startled. "Hey," he said softly. "Did I wake you?" "No," she replied. "I just couldn't sleep anymore." He nodded. "Coffee?" She smiled faintly. "Please." They stood in the kitchen again, quieter than before, the night having changed something they hadn't named. Maya wrapped her hands around the mug and stared into it. "I should go soon," she said. Ethan didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was steady. "Whatever you decide," he said, "it won't change how welcome you are." The words settled deep. She looked around the apartment, at the storm still raging outside, at the quiet warmth inside, at the man who had never once asked her to stay. And the truth arrived gently, unmistakably. She wanted to. That scared her more than the storm ever could. Because staying, even just for the night, meant trusting something she'd never trusted before. That this wasn't a trap. That sometimes a closed door wasn't about keeping you in, it was about keeping the world out. ACT3, the door where everything changed. ~1 301 500 words midpoint emotional confession title moment choice not force. Maya stood by the door longer than she meant to. Her coat was on. Her bag slung over her shoulder. Her keys cold in her palm. Everything about her posture said leaving. Everything inside her resisted it. Behind her, Ethan leaned against the kitchen counter, giving her space the way he always did. He hadn't followed her, hadn't hovered, hadn't asked her to stay. That was what made this so hard. "I should go," she said again, softer this time. The rain eased up. It hadn't, but she needed the excuse. Ethan nodded once. "I can walk you if you want." "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "It's fine, I just—" She stopped, frustrated with herself. "I didn't plan for this." "I know," he said gently. She turned to face him. "I don't stay the night at people's places. I don't blur lines. I don't wake up somewhere and have to figure out what it means." His gaze held hers, steady and calm. "Then don't blur anything. Being here already has," she replied. Silence stretched. Maya reached for the door handle again, fingers curling around the metal. Her pulse raced, not because she was afraid of him, but because she was afraid of herself. "Ethan," she said, not looking at him, "please don't make this harder." He straightened slowly. "I won't," he said, "but I also won't pretend I don't want you to stay." Her breath caught. He crossed the room, not fast, not blocking her path, until he stood a few feet away. Close enough to be felt, far enough to escape if she chose. Then quietly, deliberately, he reached past her and closed the door. The sound was soft, final. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She turned sharply. "Ethan!" "I'm not locking it," he said immediately. "And I'm not stopping you." His hand stayed on the door, fingers relaxed. "But I need to say this before you go." She searched his face for pressure. There was none, only vulnerability. "If you leave right now," he said, voice low but steady, "it won't be because you want to." Her throat tightened. "You don't know that." "I do," he replied softly, "because I've watched you leave things you wanted before, every time." The words landed with painful accuracy. "You leave before people can choose you," he continued, "before you can be disappointed, before staying starts to matter." Tears burned behind her eyes. "That's not fair," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but it's true." He lifted his hand from the door, stepping back half a pace. "I don't want to trap you," he said. "I want you to stay because you choose to. Even if it's just for tonight." Her chest ached. "Why does it matter to you?" she asked, voice shaking. "Why does this matter?" Ethan exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath all night. "Because when you walked in soaked and exhausted," he said, "my first instinct wasn't attraction, it was relief." She frowned. "Relief that you were here," he clarified, "that you trusted me enough to come." Her defenses wavered. And when you fell asleep on the couch," he went on, "I realized I didn't want the night to end with you leaving because you were scared of what rest might cost you." Silence filled the space between them. "I want you to stay," he said simply. "But I need you to know if you walk out that door I will let you." Her eyes dropped to the handle, then lifted back to him. "What if I stay and regret it?" she whispered. "Then you'll leave in the morning," he said, "with no debt, no expectations. No guilt, and if I don't regret it?" He met her gaze. "Then we'll deal with that honestly." Her heart pounded. This was the moment she always avoided, the moment where leaving wasn't escape, it was habit. She reached for the handle one last time, then she let go. "I'll stay," she said quietly, "not because you asked, because I want to know what it feels like not to run." Ethan didn't move, didn't touch her, he just nodded, eyes dark with emotion. "Thank you for choosing," he said. The tension eased, not vanished, but softened into something warmer. Maya slipped her coat off slowly, deliberately, setting it on the chair. The door stayed closed, unlocked, and for the first time in years, staying didn't feel like giving something up. It felt like stepping into something she'd been afraid to want. ACT4 Morning Fear and the NEAR Goodbye, tilde 201 400 words vulnerability, doubt, almost loss. Maya woke to quiet. Not the empty kind that followed her in unfamiliar places, but a lived-in stillness. The low hum of the refrigerator. Distant traffic softened by early morning mist. A faint smell of coffee drifting down the hallway. For a moment she forgot where she was, then she remembered the door, her choice. The way she hadn't run, her chest tightened. She sat up slowly on the couch, the blanket folded neatly around her shoulders like someone had cared enough to make sure she stayed warm through the night. That thought unsettled her more than anything else. She swung her feet to the floor just as Ethan appeared in the doorway, already dressed, mug in hand. He froze when he saw she was awake. "Hey," he said gently, "did I wake you?" "No," she replied, "I was already up." They stood there unsure for the first time since the night before, not awkward, just aware. "I made coffee," he said, "and toast. I wasn't sure what you'd want." "That's fine," she said quickly. "Anything's fine." He nodded and stepped back, giving her the option to follow. She did. They sat at opposite ends of the small kitchen table, the distance deliberate now. Daylight stripped the night of its softness, revealing questions they hadn't asked yet. Maya wrapped her hands around the mug, avoiding his eyes. "This is the part where things get complicated," she said quietly. Ethan didn't disagree, "only if we let them." She let out a small laugh. "That's optimistic." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not assuming anything." That word again, anything. She looked up at him. "You don't regret last night?" "No," he said without hesitation. The certainty in his voice made her chest ache. "I do," she admitted. His brows drew together, not in anger but concern. "Not because I stayed," she clarified quickly, "because I'm already thinking about how to leave without getting hurt." Silence fell between them. "Maya," he said carefully, "I didn't ask you to stay because I expected something from you." "I know," she said, "that's the problem." She pushed her chair back and stood abruptly. "I need air." "I'll walk you." "No," she said, shaking her head. "I need to do this alone." He didn't argue, that hurt more than if he had. She grabbed her coat and bag, her movements rushed now, panic creeping in. Staying overnight had felt brave, facing the meaning of it in daylight felt terrifying. At the door she hesitated. "Last night didn't change anything," she said, more to herself than to him. Ethan watched her quietly. "I won't pretend it didn't," he said, "but I won't force it to mean more than you want it to." That was it, the kindness she didn't know how to handle. She opened the door. "I need space," she said. He nodded once. "You have it." She left without looking back. The days that followed felt hollow. Maya returned to her routines, work, errands, polite conversations, but everything felt slightly off, like she was moving through a version of her life that no longer fit quite right. She replayed the night in fragments. The closed door, his voice, the way he'd stepped back instead of forward. She told herself she left because she was protecting herself. But late at night, lying alone in her apartment, the truth pressed in harder. She hadn't left because he scared her, she left because she'd felt safe. and safety was unfamiliar territory. A week passed, then another, no messages. No accidental meetings, no pressure. Ethan kept his promise. And slowly Maya realized something painful. She missed him not in an aching, dramatic way but in the quiet spaces. The moment she reached for her phone to tell someone something small and realized there was no one she trusted enough to send it to, she missed being seen without being chased. The realization came on an ordinary evening. She was cooking dinner when the power flickered, plunging her apartment into darkness. The sudden silence startled her. Instinctively, her first thought wasn't fear, it was Ethan, the way he'd closed the door to keep the storm out, the way he'd waited for her to choose. Her chest tightened. She set the pan aside and sat down, the truth settling in with gentle certainty. He hadn't stopped her from leaving. He'd given her a reason to stay, and she'd run anyway. Her phone felt heavy in her hand. She stared at it for a long moment before typing. "Maya, I think I left because staying mattered." The response came minutes later. "Ethan, I know." Tears blurred her vision. Another message followed. "I'm here if you want to talk. No pressure, no pressure." The words undid her completely. She wiped her eyes and typed back, "Can I come by?" Three dots appeared immediately. Yes. And for the first time since she'd walked out that door, Maya didn't feel trapped. She felt like she was finally walking toward something instead of away from it. ACT 5, the door she chose to walk through. Tilde 1, 201, 400 words. Emotional resolution, choice, payoff. Maya stood outside Ethan's apartment longer than she needed to. Not because she was unsure where she was, but because she was finally aware of where she was going. This time she knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Ethan didn't look surprised, relieved, yes. Careful, grounded, like someone who had hoped without expecting. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied. For a moment they just stood there, the familiar hallway suddenly heavy with everything unsaid. "I'm not here to stay the night," Maya said quickly, the words tumbling out before fear could rearrange them. "At least not by accident." Ethan nodded, stepping aside. "Come in." She did. The apartment looked the same, warm, quiet, steady, the same door, the same couch, the same space that had felt like shelter when the world outside had been too loud. They stood across from each other, neither rushing. "I've been thinking a lot," Maya said, clasping her hands together to keep them from shaking. "About that night, about the door." Ethan listened, always. "You didn't stop me from leaving," she continued. "You didn't corner me or convince me or make it impossible to go." "No," he said, "I just told you the truth." She nodded, "and I wasn't ready to hear it." Silence settled, not uncomfortable, just honest. "I left because staying felt important," she said. "And important things scare me." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Maya," he said, "I never closed the door to keep you in." "I know," she replied. "You closed it so I'd stop running long enough to decide." Her eyes burned. "No one's ever done that for me before," she whispered, "given me a choice and trusted me not to disappear." He took a step closer, not crowding, not claiming. "I trusted you because you came back," he said. She laughed softly through the tears. "Barely. I almost convinced myself not to." "But you didn't," he said. She met his gaze fully now. "I don't want to live my life always leaving first," she said, "and I don't want to pretend that night didn't matter just because it started unplanned." Ethan's voice was steady, but there was emotion beneath it now. "Then what do you want?" She took a breath. "I want to stay," she said, "not because it's easy, not because I'm tired, but because I choose you." He didn't move for a long second. Then his shoulders relaxed like he'd been holding something heavy for a long time. "I choose you too," he said, "and I won't make you prove it every day." Her chest ached in the best way. They didn't kiss right away. Instead, Ethan reached for her hand, slow and deliberate, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined naturally, easily. "This time," she said quietly, "if I stay the night, it's because I want to wake up here." His thumb brushed lightly over her knuckles. "Then stay," he said, "not because the door is closed." She glanced at it, the same door that had felt so final before. Ethan followed her gaze. "It's unlocked," he added gently. She smiled. "I know." They moved together this time, not rushed, not hesitant, just present. Later, when the city had gone quiet again and the apartment was wrapped in soft darkness, Maya lay beside him, her head resting against his chest. His arm was around her, not tight, not possessive, just there. She listened to his heartbeat, steady and calm. "This feels different," she murmured. "It is," he said. "You're not staying by accident." She shifted slightly, fitting more comfortably against him. "That night," she said, "I thought you didn't let me leave." He smiled faintly against her hair. "I never stopped you," he said. "You just finally stopped running." She closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something she had to escape from. When she woke the next morning, sunlight spilled across the room. Ethan was awake. And he was still holding her. This time she knew exactly why.